morning. So good to see you. Okay, let me think I've got everything set up. Let me get rid of the background music. Microphone is on, which is good. I think this thing is dying though. So how have you been? You know my story. Oh my gosh, the things that have been going on. And on top of that, I might have a sensitivity to coffee. I'm really worried. So now I have water. Anyway, how have you been? What's going on in your life? Of course, you know that I had, starting 3 weeks ago, I had that ear infection, and it never just seemed to go away. Let me just switch down to this. I had the wrong one on. It never really went away. So, long story short, the doctors, everybody that I went to didn't listen to me. Trust your gut. And the very first thing I said was, I am susceptible to fungal infections because I have a systemic fungal issue. And they're like, oh, well, very rarely does that happen. And so we're just going to put you on antibiotic drops. Well, if you know anything about fungal infections, antibiotics make it worse. So long story short, I finally went to my son's otolaryngologist, head and neck surgeon, who's like the top in this part of the country, not just this city or this part of the state, in this part of the country. He's quoted all the time. He's published, and he's an amazing Christian. He used to pray with us before my son had any surgeries and things like that. So anyway, he said, oh, this is definitely a fungal infection. And I had lost almost all the hearing in that ear. Well, come to find out, as the fungus was building up, it was just packing against my eardrum. So I have a follow-up on Thursday, and we're going to see how things are progressing during this past week, because I am starting to lose hearing that ear again. So I'm assuming it's because the fungus, the treatment that I'm using is killing the fungus. So, and it's probably causing more debris to build up in that ear canal and against the eardrum again. So anyway, so that's the good news. So how is everybody? Let me look and see who's here. Oh my gosh, look at everybody. Oh, I love you guys so much. I miss you. There's Fiona, Victoria. Oh, sorry. Fiona beat you this time, Victoria. And Sarah and Colette and Joanne and Heather and Vicky, Mary Therese, Jackie, Fiona, Beth. Let me see, who have I missed? Who did I miss? Did I see Tina? Tina! And Loretta and Amy. Is everybody getting video? Oh, you're getting video on your phone, says Fiona. Oh, I'll just keep calling it Coffee with Colleen. So, tea, that's kind of weird. Yeah, I've had Abbey Roast, actually, Victoria. You can see now, Vicky. Good. Cool, cool, cool. All right, and Mary's here. Mary Teresa's back. So, yeah, and messages went out this morning to all 1,820 people who are signed up for notifications that when I go live. So, kind of keep that in mind. Anyway, so that's what's going on. But since I finally got rid of almost all of the dizziness and that type of thing, I was able to sit up and read books. And I like Kindle books because I read so fast. Not only that, you can highlight in a Kindle book and it saves it to a special place on Amazon that you can go and read just your highlights later. So that's what I thought I would do this morning. I wanted to tell you about some of the books I've been reading. And one of them is called Emotional Agility. I think it was published 2 years ago. If you were already in the Emotional Intelligence course, you missed the Cyber Friday sale or Cyber Monday sale, by the way. I still have it, quote unquote, on special at $4.97, marked down from $9.97. But it is, and there's payment plans available in there. I tried to update them this morning, and it wasn't taking my new price update as far as giving a 4-payment option for the $4.97 price. But anyway, so this just goes hand in hand with the Emotional Intelligence course. So if you're in that, this will make sense to you. And matter of fact, some of this you may already know. So love me some Kindle, said Vicky. Absolutely. Yeah, I learned that from Michael Hyatt, actually. So got the video feed on your iPad. Excellent, Fiona. Yeah, it's good to see you too, Mary. So I know I say it. That's why I say it that way, Vicky. Vicky! I say it just like you say it. Hey, Maria, good to see you. Hey, Liz. So yeah, so anyway, that's a little bit of that. That's a little bit about what's been going on. And then of course my son, I can say this now publicly, and if you're in any of my private groups, you know this. But my son thought he was having a heart attack, and he is overweight, and so it's very much a possibility. And he thought he was having a heart attack. He's been having some health problems. He thought he was having all of these chest pains, and then they did an EKG and it came back abnormal, and so he's been really upset and worried about that. And he's a melancholic, so any of those who've taken my 4 temperaments course know that melancholics always see the worst case scenario, and they can build themselves into a problem. And as I always talk about here, there's the power of your mind, and what you think about, you bring about, negative and positive. So he was just sure he was having a heart attack, and I thought he had talked himself into it. And he started explaining all of his symptoms and his pains and whatnot, and it sounded like he was having a heart attack. So I said, well, if it may, because what do you say? Anybody that's taken my temperaments course, what do you always say to a melancholic? I see where you're coming from, but I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's as bad as it seems right now. That's an important phrase to use with a melancholic. So I said, no, you know what? I'll tell you what let's do, which is a phrase I picked up when I lived in Atlanta. Tell you what let's do. And that and carry me to the store, which I have never said, but they said that a lot there. Anyway, I said, why don't we just have your dad, because I was almost an hour away. I said, why don't we just have your dad take you to the emergency room, and they can, they'll just tell you that it's all in your head. So in the meantime, I called ahead to the emergency room, explained the symptoms, gave him his height and his weight and what's been going on and what had already been tested. And so they had a room prepared so that as soon as my son walked in the door, they went, oh, you must be Connor Hammond. We your mom called and offered to give the blood work, because I told them how he was. And in the meantime, I'm, like I said, an hour away. So they take him right in, and I get a text from a couple of minutes ago, I'm already hooked up at EKG. You're right. This place is awesome. And have you ever been that far away when someone you love, especially a child, it's bad enough if it's your husband, but when it's a child, or somebody that you love, there's that feeling in your stomach and in your chest, and that, it's not like, oh, all I can do is pray, because that's a really powerful thing to be able to do. But there's that feeling of wanting to take action and wanting to do something. Have you ever had that feeling? Just that pit and that tightening in your chest. And I was terrified. And about half an hour later, I'm texting my husband, give me an update, give me an update, give me an update, and this is the same emergency room that I was just in the week earlier, right? So I know the text messaging works out of there. And he finally said, oh yeah, by the way, they did the EKG, it came back normal. They're now doing this, now they're doing that. They think it's a blood clot in his lung because he can't breathe. And they went through all these things. So he ended up coming out of there with, heart was perfectly fine. Everything tested normal. The EKG they had done earlier showed an abnormal Q wave. And I said it was because I've had heart problems before. I know these things, right? And I said they put the lead, instead of putting one of the leads on his ankle, they put it up like on his abdomen or his chest. So that's the reason they got an abnormal Q wave. So if you ever get an EKG, make sure they put one of the leads on your ankle. So anyway, or you might get a false negative on the Q wave. Your heart positively aches with helplessness, doesn't it, Vicki? Oh, what we do without our mom, says Loretta. Unconditional love. So true. Hey, Kim, good morning. Hey, Alicia. It's so terrifying. It's so terrifying. So yeah, and Vicki, when you call like the emergency room and you let I used to work in an emergency room. I volunteered in an emergency room when I was in high school. And I was a candy striper. Remember those? And they're high school volunteers, right? But as somebody that if you're thinking you may have a future in medicine, which I did at the time, I wanted to be a doctor. It was amazing experience. It was such amazing experience. And it gave you really on the job experience. And because I was deemed responsible and I didn't faint at blood and all that kind of stuff, they put me in the emergency room. Very few candy stripers were allowed to work in the emergency room. So I know that in triage, when you arrive at the emergency room, why are you there? And as soon as you say heart, you're like top of the list. So, I mean, it was the truth, but I didn't want them to wait to get to that point. I wanted him to be able to walk in and know. And so when I called and spoke to the nurse on the phone and explained what was going on, he said, "Thank you so much for calling. We'll be able to take care of him right away." So my husband said the room was ready. He said that, and because they had a special size bed, because he's a, 6'6", 6'8", 400 pounds. He's a big kid. So they were able to have that all prepared and ready and treat him immediately. They hooked up his IV. They got his EKG going, everything within like a minute or two. They said 5 minutes, but probably 5 minutes. My son said, "Oh, I don't know, it was like 5 minutes." I said, "From the time you got out of the car or what?" So yeah, that was Candy Striper. Yay. Look at all the candy stripers. That's amazing. Yeah. So anyway, so that's not what we're here to talk about today, but that's supposed to be the pre-show show, but I just couldn't get going. I haven't done this in so long. Kim too. Oh my gosh. It's funny because I was watching a movie and somebody said something about a candy striper and my children were like, "Is that like Santa's assistant or something?" No, the candy striper. They're volunteers at the hospital. I have white pants. I have my little penny thing. And oh, it's just adorable. I love that. I love that. I called it a job, but it really wasn't. I didn't get paid. I worked there so many hours as a volunteer, but it really wasn't a job. But anyway, I did want to talk about this book, one of the books that I read, A Heads Up. So the bed's up. You got it, Vicki. Yeah, you can call ahead. It's important, especially if it's a heart issue. And this hospital, I've always liked this emergency room. I have 4 children, 2 boys. I used to take kids to the emergency room, right? Because nothing ever happens when the doctor's office is available, does it? Does it for you? Because it doesn't for me. It usually seems. And we have a copay of $150, but I don't like using the hospital as the emergency room as the doctor's office, but sometimes, you do what you do. So anyway, so I got, after my dizziness and everything with all my ears have gone away, I still have some tinnitus in this ear, so I still have some ringing, and now I'm getting the hearing loss over here again. But again, like I said, I think it might just be debris, but I got a chance to read. So one of the books that I read was called Emotional Agility: How to Get Unstuck, Embrace Change, and Thrive in Work and Life. And I think I cover more here free live than was available in this book. But then again, I've been doing this for a long time. And definitely my course covers a gazillion times more than this. But I thought this was a nice complement to the course. So I thought I would cover it here this morning out of the, I don't know, I had about 15 books that I read while I was down in the past 3 weeks. So I picked this one. Because I had, I know it well enough that I don't have to kind of keep referring to my notes, but all right. So the important thing about emotional intelligence is learning. Oh, really, Heather? That's amazing. Yeah, I know, Sarah. I'm glad he's okay too. It was scary, scary, scary. Oh, and I forgot the end of the story. He ends up walking out of there. Come to find out, I can't remember the name. It's like this long, starts with a C, and it's an itis. But it's an inflammation and an infection. Actually, it starts with a T because we did find out that it was an infection. Congraditis, I forget what it's called. Anyway, it's an infection or an inflammation of how the rib attaches to the sternum. So there's that cartilage in there, and that's inflamed, and it presses, it just radiates across the entire chest. And the cardiologist that came down into the emergency room for a consult said, it feels very much like somebody's having a heart attack, which is why he had all the symptoms of a heart attack, because it's very, very similar. So there's that inflammation/infection. And then also they said because he was having these breathing problems, it could be that, or it could be seasonal asthma. And the 3 things that can be related to seasonal asthma are, number 1, pet dander. We have cats. Number 2 is dust mites. And this is a child who is not fond of, because I teach all my children to do their own laundry, change their own sheets, and all that kind of stuff. And he pretty much has to be told because it doesn't bother him. So now I said, you have to change your bed sheets and keep them clean on a regular basis. So we got a special wrap for his mattress. And steamed, did high boiling point. We have our washing machine has high heat so that it'll kill all these things. And then we put it in high heat in the dryer. So if there were any dust mites or anything, or bed bugs for that matter, in his sheets, then those were taken care of. And I said, so at this point, if you do have seasonal asthma, you really do have to be washing your sheets at least every week, and then your mattress pad every other week to make sure that we deal with the dust mite issue. So It could be seasonal asthma, but he doesn't seem to think that the albuterol is helping him very much. So anyway, I hate to get him started on something that he doesn't need. But anyway, I got to read a lot of books, a lot of books. Yeah, it's really painful. You would know, Heather. Yeah, so it's very, very painful. Yeah, I know. Isn't it true, Tina, that it seems like our families need doctors on the weekends? It's like, please. I used to go to a doctor's office that was open on Saturdays, but they're not open on Saturdays anymore either. So anyway, hey, good morning, Kelly. All right, so now we can finally get into it 15 minutes later. So that was my pre-show show. Let's talk about emotional agility. And emotional intelligence, as I've talked about many times before, so I'm just going to cover this really briefly, and then you can go look at some of my old videos to get caught up on this. Emotional intelligence, or EQ, emotional quotient, is the test that they use to test your emotional intelligence, just like intelligence quotient, IQ, is the test. Thanks, Lori. It's good to be here. So I've missed you guys so much. So people think that, oh, you have to have a high IQ to be really successful, or you have to have maybe a sanguine personality to be a real good salesperson, or to really get along with people to be successful in life, or you have to be an extrovert to be successful in life. All these false and misconceptions about what really constitutes a happy life, a fulfilled life, a successful life. And if you're in Gorgeous Gals, you know, we just covered that whole, we spent 3 weeks going over what's your definition of success? Who do you want to be when you grow up? Who do you want to be in your deathbed? All those types of things are leading us into the next step, which is we're going to be talking more about emotional intelligence and goal setting. But they have found that all of those other factors are not what makes a person happy, successful, and fulfilled in life. It's their emotional intelligence, their ability to be emotionally agile, which is why she used, I'm sure, that name for the book. Dr. Mom's the best they can get. I know, Tina, that's the way it works. So learning emotional intelligence is learning to deal with your emotions as they are happening, because 66% of people don't do that, which means that everybody else is running around in their life dealing with something that happens in this knee-jerk emotional way, as opposed to saying, okay, why am I having these feelings? What's going on? And my girls have been raised that way, so they know that every once in a while they have kind of this rush of emotions, and they know it happens on a monthly basis and when it happens. So as soon as they start feeling really upset or depressed or overcome or overwhelmed, they check their calendars. Okay. And it's not discounting those feelings. It's understanding that those emotions are the biology in your body. And that's where those emotions come from. Your feelings is how you choose to react to those hormones that are in your body. So the kind of a, semantics, but it's kind of an important thing. So learning to deal with those emotions, which are just physical responses in your body. And it could be triggered by a smell, because it could remind you of something. And I also got caught up on Blue Bloods when I was in bed. I used to watch Blue Bloods when I lived in Michigan. My mom and I would watch it every Friday night. And it stars Tom Selleck. He is a police commissioner and out of New York City. And he's also Catholic, a very staunch Catholic. And they always have these big Sunday dinners and whatnot. Anyway, I was going to tell a story about that. It's going to take too long. So a great idea to track emotions on a calendar for girls. Yeah. You got to get to work on your GG. Absolutely, Fiona. So also those emotions, those chemical reactions in your bloodstream will trigger smells, will trigger, things from the past. Oh, back to Blue Bloods. I guess I can cover this really quickly. He hated his birthday. He didn't want his birthday celebrated. He didn't want a party or anything like that. And finally, somebody asked him why, and they really dug down into why. Well, what had happened was his dad had arranged to take him and his buddies to a Rangers game when he was just a kid. He was like 9, 10 years old. And he told all the dads the wrong date. And he said, this is before cell phones. And so what had happened was, he told the people the wrong date. It was like he told them Saturday instead of Friday. And so Friday comes and it's his big birthday party and everything, and none of his buddies show up. And his dad was like, oh, I'm sorry, I told them that was tomorrow. But as a 9-year-old little boy, he didn't see it that way. And he saw that anytime you celebrate your birthday, it's like your friends don't show up and it's really disappointing. And it's like, so that was a trigger for him. And he never stopped long enough to think, why am I having this emotion? So that's what this emotional agility and emotional intelligence does. And my course will take you through, the 4 different levels of emotional intelligence. And then at the end of those 4 weeks, you get to pick, okay, what do I want to work on first? And then once you click on, I'm going to work on this, then it triggers a set of emails to be sent to you. So you can constantly be working this program for the whole year, depending on what you want to work on this week and what do you want to work on next week, because there's 66 different things to work on. So if you did 1 a week, that would take you actually more than a year. So stopping to see, why am I having this emotion? Was it triggered by a past event? Was it triggered by a smell? Is it triggered by something on the calendar? Is it, so Digger, you remember that episode? Oh, I know, it was amazing. So much stuff. Yeah, love Blue Buds. Yay. Oh, it's such a good show. Look at all those. Hashtag love Blue Buds. Yeah. So it was a great show. So if you're ever thinking like imposter syndrome, I'm just not good enough. As soon as people find out that I'm not who they think I am, everything's going to implode in my life. I have those feelings. I look at everybody here this morning. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. If you saw me like 10 minutes ago, oh gosh. If only if I were a better spouse. If only, I'm not ready to handle this. Oh my gosh, I practiced and I rehearsed and I'm not ready to give this speech. I'm just going to fail. I'm going to flop. I'm so worried that this bad thing is going to happen. If any of that sounds familiar, then you're dealing with these emotional things, and it's good to dig down and find out, okay, why do I think this way? And number 2, why am I talking to myself this way, right? So a lot of times our self-talk or that inner voice becomes a Arlie Ermy, this drill sergeant type person that is making harsh judgments and just enveloping us in all of this negativity. So learning to handle that inner voice and that self-talk is really important as you're going through. So what did I learn in the book? Really, again, and I talk about this all the time about your self-talk, that those are real distortions. And I'll get into that in just a second. Trying to get rid of those unhelpful patterns and negative emotions that are created by these distorted ideas that we have in our head, these distorted emotions, these distorted memories. I watched the show on how unreliable witnesses are when they're going back and explaining a circumstance, because they're so easily deceived by, now, was the person wearing a red hat or a blue hat? Red. Are you sure it was red? A lot of other people are saying blue. Wow, maybe it was blue. So firsthand witnesses are totally unreliable. And when you see that, it's like, thank goodness we have cameras. Not really, because I don't like having cameras on every store. And, you can't go anywhere without being on camera, right? Because you see it on the news every night. There's always some, CCTV coverage of something that happened in the street or whatever. And if you've read 1984, there's a little thing in your home too. So. Lori said, last night I had a moment and say, okay, if it doesn't kill me, it's going to make me stronger. Repeat 20 times. Yeah. Or until you start to feel different. Knowing your emotions, learning to control and manage the emotions. Yeah. That's what the emotional intelligence course does. Yeah. So let me see. So distortions in your memories. Emotionally agile means dealing with your emotions as they rise to benefit your relationships, your work, your life, your self-care. Right. Also, I thought she covered this well in this book, where, what you think about, you bring about, or what you think about, fake it until you become it, fake it until you make it. There's a lot of that, the smiling. So I'll cover that in a minute about why that's not bad. Why that is bad in some cases, because you're in denial, and downplaying your weaknesses makes you less confident. So see Brene Brown, or anything she's done on vulnerability and that type of thing, is the ability to being able to see the areas that you're weak in, or to accept responsibility for something, the part you had in something. And we've talked about this a number of times. I think I've pretty much told everybody I've been raped twice, and I have to take responsibility for what I did. what I could have done differently. And I had somebody wait in a hotel lobby who saw me leave, was not staying at this hotel. It was a really nice hotel. And he stayed in the lobby for 8 hours until I came back, followed me up to my room, which I wasn't alert. I wasn't paying attention. I kind of had a funny feeling, but I was like, oh no, that's not happening. And because women are that way, we try to ignore things. We make excuses for other people. We value network relationship type things over, you know, the hierarchy things like men do. And so I heard a knock on my door and I opened it and it checked out the peephole. So I take responsibility for that. And I always check the peephole. I never open a door without first looking out the little peephole to see who's on the other side of the door. So I take ownership of that. Now, does that make it okay that I was raped? Does that make it okay that he stayed in the lobby for 8 hours waiting for me to come back? That he followed me up to my room? That, you know, none of that was okay. That he raped me. None of that was okay. But I take ownership, which empowers me to make sure I will never let something like that happen again. And I will protect my children and tell them the story and make sure nothing like that happens to them ever again. Now, am I saying that, you know, all people who were raped, you know, have to take ownership of something? Because that's the problem that I had when I was in counseling, is they're like, it's not your fault. Well, I know that, but I should have checked out the peephole. It's still not your fault. I know that, but I should have looked. If I would have looked out the peephole, you know, I wouldn't have opened the door. Right? So that empowers me to make sure that I don't ever do that again. I always look out the peephole. Am I paranoid? No, because I've had a bad experience. And I empower myself by accepting responsibility for my very small portion of that activity, of what happened. And sometimes, you know, if you look back in your life, I'm not saying in a rape situation or anything like that, you could look back in your life and say, you know what, I can't think of anything I'd do differently. Bad things happen to good people. That's just a fact of life, you know? And so what could you have control of? I don't know. I don't think I could have control over anything. How do I get off on that? Downplaying your weaknesses actually make you less self-confident. So when I was able to go into this group counseling session and say, you know what? I take ownership of the fact that I opened the door and didn't look through the peephole. And now I feel empowered because I'll never let that happen again. And the girl next to me went, I am so glad you said that, because I went jogging. This was in Atlanta when I was at this particular group therapy. And she was from New York City. She went jogging every night after work, which for her was like at 5 o'clock. So she got home that night late. And by the time she showered and changed, it was like 10:30. And she went jogging in Central Park at 10:30 at night. And she was kidnapped, held, taped, gone, you know, just horrific. And she said, my whole life, the problem I've had with this is the fact that I went jogging alone in Central Park at 10:30 at night, and I shouldn't have done that. Okay, well, I did, and I won't do it again. And now I can go talk to other women and say, don't do that, you know, and it's very empowering in that way. Sorry. The guy, his car, and everything in it to a T. Yeah, it's amazing when you focus on stuff like that. I'm sorry that happened to you, by the way. It's amazing, Kim, when you focus on stuff like that, it keeps your mind calm and present. And there's a sense of clarity that, you know, this hyper clarity that can come from adrenaline. And some people don't respond that way. That adrenaline makes their other flight things kick in. So strategies, specific practices are a must to overcome your thoughts. Yeah, self-sabotage. A lot of people deal with self-sabotage, and when you get to know some super successful people, I mean, Oprah talked about her self-sabotage, how she has dealt with that at different levels of her life. So hashtag safety first, Vicki. Yeah. Yeah, that's okay, Mary. It helps me help other people. Tina says, women trying to quiet the small voice when we hear danger. We all do. Yeah, we really do. So yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg of the crap I've been through in my life, Mary. Pardon me, but sometimes just no sufficient word to say some really devastating things. And so I've had like the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. So anyway, how you pay your life lessons forward. Yeah, that's how I look at it, Vicki. It's like, hey, this bad thing happened. Like you talk about the things that happened in your life the same way, you know, and how you can take lemons and make them into lemonade. Strategies, do I have some? Oh, which ones, Joanne? Overcoming self-sabotage and self-talk and stuff. We're going to be covering that in Gorgeous Gals. Situational awareness, Fiona, absolutely right. Almost being on yellow alert all the time. Truly, you know, and I just think it's prudent. Anyway, okay, that 15 minutes to do my first paragraph of notes. All right, so again, to that point that your brain can create distorted memories of things, or life experiences. So, think back on a really traumatic time as a child, and being able to comfort that child. And this is one of the things I learned in great therapy sessions that I had with Dr. Hal, is being able to look at the situations in your life and go back and speak to that child as an adult would speak to that child. And that child, of course, is you, because these are your memories. But when things happen to you as a child, they seem so dramatic. I have that talk with my children all the time. Okay, this is not a tragedy. This is not something to get this worked up about. This hasn't happened. This hasn't happened. This hasn't happened. Actually, what happened is somebody at work didn't pull their weight and blamed you. All right, so how are we going to learn from this? What are we going to make sure we do next time? Do they have those cameras that you can tell your boss, please go look at the cameras, which is actually what happened. And the boss looked at the camera and went, oh my gosh, not only is my daughter innocent in this other girl was not only guilty of that, but she also committed this crime and was fired for stealing from the till. So, looking at a situation, putting it into perspective. So at 9, like Frank Reagan had that experience that all these boys didn't show up at the baseball game, and he was devastated, so never more celebrated his birthday. Didn't want to celebrate his birthday because he didn't want that to happen again. So now, knowing that, being able to go back and say, as a child, talk to that 9-year-old child that had this experience and say, this is what happened to me, and being able to release that. And so what he did instead is he bought tickets for his entire family, because he knew they were going to do something on his birthday. So instead, he goes, here's my gift to you on my birthday. I'm taking all of you to a Rangers game. And so that's kind of how it ended, so they all went to the baseball game together. So your brain will try to make sense out of experiences. And when your brain at 9 years old can't make sense of a situation, it creates a story around it. And these emotions, because we're always trying to make coherence out of our lives. So you make these stories up. And as long as your life is simple, whose life is simple, it's easy. Other than that, it's kind of tricky. But story construction, especially when you're a child, you're only basing the story on the words or the experiences So if you have an experience at 6, you only have a limited amount of vocabulary or wisdom to apply to that situation. So your brain concocts this story around it. And so a lot of times I think if we look back on our lives, things that upset us or why we're triggered by certain things, we can find that our brain created a distorted story to try to make sense of that, from 50 years ago or 30 years ago or even 10 years ago. We're in a different place now. So we're looking at our stories and seeing why they're distorted and why they're wrong. And for some reason, I think it's the devil, our minds tend to distort these stories in a negative way. So they're rarely accurate. So being able to look back and reanalyze things, freeze them and throw them at bad people. Yeah, I like that, Fiona. Jack, you made a comment, but it doesn't show up a comment on my page. Kim says, after my ordeal, I'm now super aware of people in my surroundings. Yeah, and it's a good thing. And you can teach that to other people, and you take that power back, So, in being able to look back at those stories and say, okay, what did I learn from this? What can I do different? And go forward, empowered. There's no other word. It's an overused word, but it's a good word. If you have a different word than empowered, please let me know. You might think maybe that if you're an introvert and you're in a family of extroverts, you feel unloved. Or if the other way around, if you're an extrovert and your entire family are melancholics or introverts or whatever, you just feel, I feel so weird. I'm always out of place. I always feel out of place in situations. And maybe that's because of when you were raised, you were different than everybody else in your family. So, just being able to dissect those stories. Let me see. Oh, and also people who don't deal with things as they're happening. And sometimes you can do that in your relationships and your family or at work. If you have a disagreement with your boss, for example, you choose to ignore it and not deal with it. And that ends up clouding your thinking in the long run. Because this tension and this stress builds up, and then you come home and end up taking that out on your family. which is normally what happens. So now you have two problems. You didn't resolve the conflict with your boss or a coworker, and you now have a situation at home that you have to deal with because you blew up. And Zig Ziglar used to call it kicking the cat. He'd come home and kick, he wouldn't come home, but the story he told was a guy had a bad experience at work, and then so it carried down from the boss to his secretary, and then the secretary treated somebody else badly, and that person treated this person poorly who treated you in a negative light. And so it was all because the boss had a bad drive into work or something, and then how they treat everybody else goes down the line, and the guy goes home and kicks his cat, so whose cat are you kicking was the moral of his story. So just in general, we don't see our lives really as they are. So go back and look at those distorted emotional stories in your life and reinvent them. Okay, so talking about pretending to be happy. This was the other thing that was in the Emotional Agility book. Negative emotions actually can have an upside. So if you ever see people that are, oh, they're always so happy, and how can they always be so happy? Well, people say that about me, but I'm a private person too, so I keep my tears for my private times. But I also tell you guys that I cried, but it's not really, smiling is important, which is why I gave you, that one's being used, right? The smile trick with the pen or the pencil, because what it does, if you, a fake smile, you can always tell a fake smile, and once I get the body language course finished and redone, we'll go through this, but a fake smile doesn't use the eyes. A fake smile is like, where a real smile is, and you can see it up here. So when you do the pen or pencil trick, that's pushing all of this up, and it activates all of this up here, which in turn will release hormones into your bloodstream. And that's why using that, the pen or pencil in your mouth, will give you more of a real smile, because it pushes everything up, because you're getting it on like this, right? So learning to know the difference between somebody's fake smile, and at this age, you probably know, right? So it's not healthy to avoid. It's called denial, right? And so it's not healthy to be in denial. So, oh my goodness, you were grabbed too, Vicki. Wow. In a locked car part. Wow. Scare them off before physical damage. Focus on mercy instead of negatively distorted story you can write a memory. Yep. Mercy to yourself. And we'll talk about that in just a minute, but maybe I'll just talk about it now. Hard for real trauma, but it can be done. Yeah. Situation I was triggered and worked briefly. Still have to confess pieces already in the memory. See it differently now. There you go. Took my power back, says Kim, and now if I don't feel comfortable around someone or a situation, I leave. I don't care if people think I'm silly. Yes, that's what I tell my daughters all the time. The reinvent. There you go. Amy said Tina maybe was in the military, but always listen to the voice. Very suspicious. Marine Corps women are a very small minority. You betcha. How to be cautious. Trust your gut. Served me well. So true. You can tell by the eyes, the smile, Viviana. Yep. So genuine smiles will activate the eye muscles, the oculi, and the also release the hormones. So but also if you're looking into, and then we get around toxic people, right? And then toxic people are like, it's not my fault, it's your fault for feeling that way. So being able to stop and assess the situation. So there was an example in the book where this guy was being accused, you just have anger problems, you have anger issues, you're always mad at me, by his wife. And he was in counseling and kind of broke it all down to find out that, because she said, oh, you're being unreasonable, all that kind of stuff. So he found out that she was being unreasonable and blaming him. So this is what happens when you're around toxic people and they try to tell you that you're all these things that you're really not, right? And being able to slow down, identify the situation and look at it and say, wait a minute, I need to create new boundaries because she's the one that's being demanding and unreasonably demanding. So that was the example from the books. So he would observe and recognize his emotions, created boundaries, and was then able to engage in more spousal support when they were actually able to sit down and discuss, because he just accepted the fact that he was being angry and unreasonable. And once he realized, wait a minute, she's making unusual demands, now we're able to sit down, create boundaries, and now we're able to support each other and sit down and work on this issue or that issue, as opposed to ignoring it. Because it's like, I like the book. I haven't read it in a long time, but I love the title. Feelings Buried Alive and Never Die. So when you're burying all these feelings, then you're not responding to them and reacting to them, or dealing with them. What's the word I'm looking for? You're not really searching them out and finding out why. So when you're having a negative emotion or feeling, look at it and see why, and really stopping. And then, of course, oh my goodness, look at the time. Self-compassion and self-talk. That's how you can tame these wild, boisterous emotions and feelings. So don't look at your emotions or feelings. Feelings are neither right nor wrong. They simply are. Learned that in, I don't know, some marriage retreat or something. Your feelings are neither right nor wrong. They simply are. Now let's look and see why you're having those feelings, and working on, instead of saying all these bad feelings are bad, I can never have them again. That's denial. You're going to have emotions, which are, again, are the biochemical responses in your body, and your feelings are how you respond to those emotions and how you respond to that chemical reaction that's happening in your body. So you can't ignore it. It's going to be there, but you can learn what they mean. Why am I having this rush of anger? Why do I suddenly blush and feel embarrassed? Why am I so afraid to go after this goal? What's the worst thing that could happen? What's the best thing that could happen, right? So again, looking at your childhood, visualizing the circumstances or the difficulties that you went through as a child, and feeling compassion for that child, and now being able to explain to that child as an adult, or as somebody that's 5 years removed from that, or a year removed from that situation, and going back to that person from last year or the last decade and say, all right, knowing what I know now, let me explain this to you, self. But removing yourself and looking at it from the situation. The other thing is to take a small item, the smaller the better, I think, but taking a small item and saying, okay, or writing it on a piece of paper is actually my favorite. Writing out the problem of, the situation that happened or what, but make it small, because we make these problems so much bigger in our distorted memories and in our minds, but making that idea or that problem very, very small. I like, and I coach my clients to write it on a piece of paper, because then you can crumple up that paper and burn it and get rid of it. Once you've dealt with it, found out why it's there, and get rid of it. So that's another thing. Yeah, self-compassion is really, really important. See your flaws. See your good. Truly, honestly acknowledging the gifts that you have, that, and we're all given different gifts, and then you worked on it to develop it. That's great. Make it even better. But also saying, okay, I'm not as good over here, but that's okay. And if it's a bad thing, like you're always an hour late, fix it. Just don't do it anymore. Well, how do you do that? You set your timers and go 3, 2, 1, go, and do it. I don't know else how to say it. You just do it. So self-compassion, help yourself dealing with those negative emotions and those negative feelings, and then distancing ourselves when emotions go out of whack and they get all whirly and swirly, being able to whew, excuse me, I have to run to the restroom. Just a second, I have to answer this phone call. And excusing yourself, getting your head back together, and going back in and dealing with it. But sometimes you just have to distance yourself from that whirl of emotions. Take a step back and stop. Not forever, just for a minute. Meditation, meditation, meditation. She talked about mindfulness in the book, dealing with destructive emotions. But one of her things has been proven to be wrong. She said to get a pillow and beat it up, yell and scream at it. But anytime you do, you'll just feel better if you get it all out. All the new research is saying that's a really bad idea. That's a really bad idea, because you're allowing it and not to do that. So that's the one part of the book I totally disagreed with. And it was only written 2 years ago, and this new research has been out for, I think, 5 years. Just do it, says Tina. Yeah. An herbalist I work with taught me that write it out and burn it. Good. Yeah. Excellent, Kim. So important to listen to our instincts, Tina, says Kim. I'm always suspicious, left places. 8 brothers. There's those 8 brothers are great. Defend myself. Few instances use self-control knowledge, left me cautious. Yeah, absolutely. My phone's not letting me on, Jocelyn. Everybody's having, some people can only see me on phones, and some people are on iPads, and other people are on laptops, and they're just fine. I can see it fine on my laptop, so I don't know. Create that space between your emotions, make yourself a better person. Mindfulness, meditation. Paying attention to something is mindfulness. So it could be just paying attention to your heartbeat. It could be, you know, in meditation, paying attention, looking at a candle and focusing on the flame. There's so many different ways to get into the habit of meditation. I listen to ocean waves. And I got Brain FM, and that has different wavelengths that you can listen to put your brain in a different wavelength. So, but getting in tune with those emotions and those feelings, and then decide what to do about it. Let me see how many other pages. I've got like 4 more pages of notes. I'm not going to cover all of that. But anyway, I just wanted to give you, I wanted to make it half an hour, and we're right at a half an hour. So let me look really quick. Defining your own idea of success, which we've talked about in Gorgeous Gals, so that when you get to a goal, you're not disappointed, because that happens a lot of times. And it's called social contagion. So basically, contagion meaning it's contagious, right? And social stuff. So it's things that are happening around us in our social circle, in our social sphere, that are contagious. So why do you want to drive a Beamer? Why do you want to drive a BMW? Is it because that's your idea of success, or that's the idea of other people around you's idea of success? I've never been a Beamer person, you know, but a Lexus or an Infiniti, yeah. Not as much, you know, an Audi or a Mercedes person. But that Infiniti, man, if next time I have $80,000 lying around, doesn't have anything to do, boy, I'm getting me one of them. So make sure you know what your idea of success is, so that you're not impacted by this social contagion. So that when, you know, maybe the example she used in the book is going golfing, and maybe you don't like golfing, but maybe it's because, you know, everybody around you that's successful golfs, so you feel like you have to go golfing with them. My father-in-law, God rest his soul, was a scratch golfer. And so the very first time I shot a round of golf, I was with him in his foursome, and he took me shot by shot by shot through all 18 holes, and I shot an 82, which is amazing. Very first time I played, he was so excited. He goes, "You're a natural." I hated it, but it was huge in my husband's family. So I was thrilled when we left and moved to Atlanta so I could work at the Weather Channel. Because I didn't want to have to play golf oh my gosh, they golfed. He golfed every day. So, "Oh, you want to come play?" No. Because I did the news. I was doing the evening news. So I had all my days free. And so he was retired and wanted me to play golf with him. I'm like, "I really don't like playing golf." "But you're so good." "Yeah, but I don't like it," you know? So why do you do the things you do? Why do you like the things that you like? Is it because other people around you like them and it just kind of rubbed off? For me, it was like, oh, I was introduced to wine, and I love wine. I love really good wine. And so I was exposed to it, not at home growing up, but when I started modeling and doing a lot of things, I hung around with some really wealthy people, and just because I was working for them, and after like a show or something like that, they would take us out to dinner, and that's how I was introduced to fine wine. I was 18, 19, 20, which the drinking age at the time was 18, so nothing salacious going on. So it's not that I drink fine wine because I just like it, you know? So looking at that social contagion and why we do the things we do. Skip all that because I don't want to keep you here all day. Now, what makes couples happy and responsive to emotional bonding? I decided not to tell that story. Being challenged and stimulated. This was so important. Remember, the example she gave in the book was when you learn to ride a bike. So do you remember when you learned to ride a bike, how excited you were? And it was like, oh my gosh, I took the training wheels off. And do you remember the first time you rode a bike? Oh my gosh, I remember the first time I rode a bike. And my dad let go of the back seat, and I was wobbly down the sidewalk all the way down to the corner, and was like, I don't know how to turn, and I don't remember how to stop. And there wasn't like a garage door to run into. It was like the end of the street, and the street turned, and I don't want to go in the street. You know, what was I, 5? I don't know how old you are when you learn. I don't remember how old I was. I just remember the event, the elation, the joy. And then I tried. I'd never been taught how to turn a corner, but I tried, and I fell into a prickly bush. So vivid memory. But how exciting it was to ride a bike for the first time. Oh my gosh, I accomplished something. I don't feel that way now when I get on a bike. I just get on the bike and think, this seat hurts my butt, you know? So it doesn't bring those same feelings. That's why it's so important to keep challenged to keep yourself stimulated, and learn something new. Because bike riding now is run of the mill, right? It's just something you do. It's like boring, and there's no challenge there anymore. So think back of anything, any hurdle you have overcome or anything new you've learned, and learn a new language, learn an instrument. There's so many things that you can do to challenge your mind to grow in some area. If you're a stay-at-home mom, or a mom anyway, to read books about becoming a better mother, how to communicate better with your children, take the emotional intelligence course, because again, you can do that with your whole family. So once you become super proficient at something, it's too easy to turn on the autopilot on that. Now, autopilot teeth brushing is a good thing, right? You don't want to stop doing that. But you don't want to be bored and disengaged with every part of your life. Then you start questioning, why am I here? What's going on? I'm so bored. Maybe it's him, or maybe it's her, you know, when maybe it's you. Maybe you just need to learn something new and challenge yourself in a new direction, and not get rigid, disengaged, and bored about things, because life can get very dull and unfulfilling unless you're consciously challenging yourself. So spice things up a little bit. Skipping that. Why, I took a lot of notes. Language, instrument, small, mindful man. Okay. Walking to work, being more mindful and conscious of the things around you, paying attention to your heartbeat, paying attention to your health. So anyway, so there's a lot of different things. So don't get stuck. And to finally, even though I have 3 more pages, but distance yourself from the negative patterns that you've developed in your life, or that negative self-talk. Get out of your comfort zone. Try something new. Find creative solutions to problems, or creative solutions to anything that you do, because all it will do is benefit you. If you're learning something new, how can that be a bad thing, right? You're improving yourself. Bringing more fulfillment to your life, bringing more joy to your day. You give you something at 1:30 to look forward to. You know, I'm going to do that today at 1:30, and get yourself excited about it. I remember a friend of mine started piano lessons when she was 55. Oh, I'm 55, but I don't know how to play the piano. But so, you know, you're never too old. It's so true. You're never too old. You know, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Bull. That is not true at all. So give yourself that space by making sure you get some private time. I used to have to get up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and be by myself. And that was the only time I could get alone time. And my husband and I would put all the children to bed. Now I see the importance of bedtimes for children, but put the children to bed so we would have alone time at night, just to be with each other. So develop those things. And if you need to get up before everybody else, set your alarm 15 minutes before everybody else's is, so you can get 10 minutes of meditation in. You'll be amazed. And when you're eating, don't let your mind run about everything that you need to do. Consciously sit and eat your meal and chew your food. You can do that for 10 minutes. You know, taking those private times and those quiet times, and not letting our minds have all the tabs open on the computer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 15. I have 15 tabs open on my computer right now. That's not a lot, actually. Oh, I got another one over here. Okay. I've got more than that. Oops. But taking advantage of that time. So anyway, let me go back and look at, never understood the thrill of golf. Yeah, I know, Mary. I get it. I get it. Monsters, mindless, overwhelming, negative self-talk, emotionally ruins self. Amen, Vicky. Oh, you're at a hotel. Yeah, you never know with hotels. Man, that's crazy. That's crazy. The first time you rode a bike, you remember too, Tina. Yeah, says Ashley. How do I turn? Hashtag. So embrace the challenge. Hey, Dorothy Louise. I don't know what this is. I have to look at your links. Like, normally I don't click on links, but I know you and I trust you. My favorite learner. Thanks, Tina. We love learning from you. We learn something new all the time. Coming to Coffee with Colleen. Yeah, I don't even have my coffee mug this morning. I should have just brought it and put water in it. Watercolor painting. I actually thought about taking a painting course. We have a lady in town, and her name of her thing is Sip and Go. but it's like Van Gogh. So that's how it's spelled, is Van Gogh, sip and go. But anyway, she offers classes on just painting classes and stuff, but she serves wine with it. And I thought that would be fun. Chew your food. So yeah, that would be a good time. That would be a good time. So anyway, so that's it. Actually Thursday morning, I'm not sure how the traffic is going to be because I have a doctor's follow-up on yay old ear. So I'm not sure about Thursday morning. I may just switch it to Tuesdays. Tuesdays are huge, busy days for me online. So it works out that maybe Tuesday would be the best day for me. I might have to back it down from 5 to 2 to maybe 1 day a week. Just until, and I've got a bunch of people I'm interviewing today. So just until I can get more people hired. I need about 5 more people. So I just have to get it going. And then I have to get all the Christmas specials going. Thank you for those of you who voted. Totally different direction that I was going. So the probably 3 courses that I'm going to be putting on sale for Christmas, I have to finish those up and wrap those up too. So anyway, alrighty. Any other questions? Oh, I forgot to change this. Dun, 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 dun. I was going to go to that instead. Because the scroll kind of drives some people nuts. But anyway, so any other questions that I can answer for you? Anything else you want to know? Just keep an eye on your text messages or your Facebook Messenger, and I will let you know. You'll get a text message like you do now, or a Facebook message if I'm going to be going live on Thursday morning. I don't think so, because it's about a 2-hour drive to the surgeon's office for this follow-up. And last time I just stayed, wasn't that the suite I had at that? Oh my gosh, with the fireplace. That was so nice. I just got to sit and enjoy my time and be in front of a fire for the first time, well, since the summer, or since last winter. We heat our home, that portion of our home, with a wood-burning stove. So we constantly have a fire going. Nice wood fire, too. So fabulous hanging out, said Vicky. Get better. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that very much. I have to go get your good son. Good to see you again, too, Amy. Prayer for your recovery. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Pray for my sis in Indonesia, my sister in Indonesia's husband. He may have to fly out of their little island and have an emergency surgery. Oh my gosh, Tina, that's horrible. Love fireplaces. Hey, Marie, you're in 1312, aren't you? Great morning, Mukesh. Good to see you here. So any other prayer requests? Anything else anybody else needs? I am. The reminder should have gone out this morning, Vicki. I did use the Remind app. I am trying to kind of gradually get people over into Facebook Messenger, because ManyChat, which is the bot that I use, and Cindy Lou is always having amazing conversations with my bot. She's like, oh, I love your bot. I always a surprise every day of what your bot's going to give me. Hey, you want these notes? Click here. It's like, I thought I deactivated that word because those notes are no longer available. So I don't know what she's saying that she's triggering all these replies either. So Cindy Lou has great conversations with my bot. Have a great day, Loretta. You too. Good to see you as well. Jocelyn's for Jocelyn's family. For everybody here, for my health, for my son's health. My daughter has her state board exam coming up. Not sure what day she's going to go do that. But prayers for her to pass her state boards. For all those special intentions, for all the people that have asked me to pray for them. Trying to remember what else is going on. I don't remember. So, anything. Meaning Man, I have been messaging with. Hoping things go well. Hoping things go well. Blessed day. Have a great day, everyone. All right. Doesn't look like there's any questions. You know, with that delay, I just want to make sure I don't hang up before I've answered any questions. So anyway, hopefully see you Thursday morning. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to try to start doing a little more informal live streaming, just like from my phone on my sofa instead of like an official class. But I appreciate you being here. The link to the emotional intelligence course is above, as is the link to the book, which I was going to hold it up, but it was a Kindle book, so I don't have the book cover to hold up. Is this it? No. I thought for sure I did the book. Where did I put it? Oh, here it is. This is what it looks like. Emotional agility. Get unstuck, embrace change, and thrive in work and in life. And the link is in the show notes above. Okay? All right. Appreciate y'all being here. God bless. Talk soon. Bye.